And just to give you a little bit of context about Self-Help Africa, we're a medium-sized organisation. Our budget is around 20 million a year, but we have a very particular niche, and our niche is sustainable conservation agriculture, nutrition and enterprise, which is market access and value chain development. And I am the gender advisor, ensuring that in the work that we do, there is equal opportunity for women to participate as farmers in our work and to benefit from our work. Often women will do the work, but they won't benefit. So they said yes, yes, please do go as Self-Help Africa. This is a week, it was a week before we were due to come, or a week and a half, something like that. So Kira said, look, I said to her, will I apply to the Department of the Environment? I most likely will not get a badge. And look, nothing ventured, nothing gained. I sent off my email saying I had planned going independently. I'm now going as part of Self-Help Africa. I am applying for a badge. Don't expect to get it, but nothing ventured, nothing gained. 3 or 4 days later, I get word back, you have a badge. So I'm going as part of the delegation. So I was very surprised. So I left Monday morning, and I'm involved in development for quite a while, but it's the first time that I have come to a global gathering, a global meeting. So when I first arrived out into the COP, I'm going to be honest and say I really hadn't a clue. I was kind of on my own in a sense, figuring out, and there's possibly a choice of 200 or 300 talks every day. It's a big, huge area. So most countries have what they call a pavilion. So you have the Indian pavilion, the Chinese pavilion, the Nordic pavilion, the African pavilion, the Indonesian pavilion, and they all have their own rooms. And they have their own talks going on in their own pavilions. As well as that, you have about a number of 15 observer rooms with talks going on there at, I would say, 9, another talk at 11:30, another talk at 1:15, another talk at 3:30, all on different areas. So the area I went to my first and second day was around agriculture, conservation agriculture, where there was debates around what is the difference between climate smart agriculture and agroecology. Basically, there's a big debate, and this is something my organisation are very much caught up in, because Concern, for example, would be a member of climate smart agriculture, and somebody like ourselves would be kind of more agroecology, but a bit of climate smart as well. Because the climate smart, there's a lot of fertilizer companies involved in pushing their fertilizers. So it's trying to find your way around what networks to get part of. So I was listing a lot of the time around agriculture. My main area of interest is that women's voices are not being heard enough in any of these negotiations. Women produce 80% of the food in Africa. We say the farmer and her husband, but their voices are not being heard. When you're in there, and I was looking even at, the talks, you'll have one woman for 4 men in the talks that I went to. So predominantly men, and there were women, of course, but I'm looking at it from a gender lens. And what I see is an awful lot of men in there making decisions. And I have a serious objection around that, because 50% of us are women, and we need to have a voice, and we need to be able to express and be part of the decision-making processes. So in the COP, I had the chance to go and listen to Al Gore. And I want to say that for me, it was one of the highlights. His presentation was outstanding. I couldn't get enough of him. It was only an hour and a half. It felt like 10 minutes. But what he carried us through, and in the end, he was brilliant, because he said, we have the solutions. We know what they are. It's renewable energy. It can create jobs. It can be green. It can take away all the bad, a lot of the bad health. It can give people income. And it's there, and we have it. And I came out and I thought, so we know this. So what's stopping it from happening? What are the barriers? And this is where I get very frustrated, because I know it's the vested interest. It's the power Mongols, again at the top, who don't really care about poor people, who don't really care about Mother Earth, and who somehow have this innate power and influence. And what I began to understand is that sometimes we NGOs have access, but we don't really have influence. And there is a very big difference. So you're going along to the COP and it's very corporate, and you know it's quite very nice and salubrious, and you know, I mean, people are working hard, but so I got that chance. Mary Robinson gave a talk, Ban Ki-moon gave a talk where they were giving out prizes to ideas, 16 different ideas about renewables in Africa and in Asia, Latin America, and it was a privilege that Alex Baldwin was walking around, Amit Figueres. So you have the opportunity to meet people that you would never meet in your lifetime, you know, never. The Scottish First Secretary, the head of the Chinese delegation. I was able to go along to a few press conferences. That's where I was listening to what are the journalists asking. They're all asking about loss and damage. They're asking about the balance between mitigation and adaptation. Where is the money going? How is Africa going to adapt if it doesn't have the money? And why should they be the ones being asked now when we've been the ones that have created the mess that we're in? So it was listening to that and having these kind of opportunities and space for me to learn, because it was more for me about learning. But I am going back to my organization with a much more deeply committed sense of I think, the really good work we're doing in self-help on conservation agriculture, helping the poorest of the poor, getting them to a place of parity with the poor, where at least they have a chance to get knowledge, access to finance, access to extension services, access to markets, adding value to their own products. That's the work that we're engaged in. And it's not just about increased production, it is about food and nutrition security. Because I do get very concerned about this pushing production, when most of the countries, the 10 countries we work in Africa, there is 40% stunting. 40%, 45% stunting. If you don't get the proper nutrition from 0 to 2 years of age, you can never make up for it. And it is an absolute disgrace that in this day and age that there are children still stunted, that don't even have proper nutrition. So for us, it's around food and nutrition security first. And then it is around doing what we did in Ireland, where you're taking subsistence farmers and where you're giving them a chance to set up cooperatives like we did, and to be able to market and to work their way in dignity out of poverty, and to be able to have choices in their life the way that we have. So it was great in that sense to be in the COP. It was a great learning. It has given me another sense of the responsibility and the privilege that goes with working with an organisation like Oxfam, like Self-Help Africa. What a privilege to be able to be involved in this kind of work. And then I left that, and then I came and met all of you guys, and I went along on the Friday night, whatever it was, and something deep in my soul was moved, because all of us that are out in the COP, we have a salary. I've made my livelihood out of being able to do the work that I do, and I often question that. I often question, am I part of the problem or the solution? And then I came and I met the heart. For me, you have the head, the heart, and the hands, and you've all the head people here, but you have the heart people here and the hands people here, putting their hands in their pocket, coming out of their own motivation, the way, the love of the earth, the love of each other as brothers and sisters of Mother Earth. And I just was so inspired to look at people from all over, the Friends of the Earth, making the creativity, the ideas, the slogans, the love, the hope, the inspiration, the drive, the motivation. I was just, it carried me, it swept me away. I guess because I'd come from that other area, and then suddenly I was in the midst of the activism, the real activism, the real care, and it affected me. And then having the possibility to be in the streets of France yesterday and to be part of something that I can go back and try to explain to my daughter the importance of it, to my friends, to my nieces, to my nephews, just the importance of what it is that we are all a part of. And it really was, for me, inspiring. So I had the possibility to see both sides, the kind of corporate side, the running around making decisions, and there are good people there. There are people working through the night. I think it's important that we can't just say, oh, they're in there in their suit. And there are committed, good people there, but they're getting paid for it. So, you know, on with your job. And then there are others who are doing it out of just a place in themselves. A place in themselves that says, you know what, I feel this connection and I feel this sense of responsibility and I'm going to act on it. And it gives us meaning and it gives us purpose. And the purpose of life is to find purpose and meaning and to live out of that. So it has been for me a fantastic privilege, and I have learned really an awful lot. And as I say, I am not the climate expert, but I know now in myself, I want to sort of go back to the organisation. I want to talk to them about like more and more that we can do. And we are doing it. We are looking at seeds. We're looking at early maturing seeds. We're looking at conservation agriculture. We're looking at trying to take out the fertilizer, doing more composting, doing agroforestry. That is all of the work that Self-Help Africa are involved in. And I just want to help to bring back to everybody there the importance of what it is that we have the privilege to work in. And then to say, one of the things I went along with Lorna Gold from Trócaire, and it was looking at the Pope's encyclical. And I had the privilege of listening to a Buddhist and an indigenous person from Brazil. And I came away with a word, and was the joy of hope. That no matter what, maybe this is just the beginning, and it is just the beginning. It's the beginning of something. But the joy that we have in the hope that we can really turn this ship and we can really leave air that our children and grandchildren can breathe and can look back on and say, thank you for bothering to take the time, for going to Paris, for being on the streets, for shouting, for being part of that movement, that energy of love. And just to be mindful of that for ourselves. So I am going away enthused, inspired by all of you, with more energy to do more, and with the joy of hope that change is on its way, and it's down to us and the likes of us that we will not stop until we can say mission accomplished. Thank you.